Welcome to Real Estate Investing Abundance, the show for busy, fulfilled professionals like you to learn how to develop financial independence built on solid, passive real estate investments. Now, here is your host, Dr. Alan Lomax.
Hello, enlightened investors. I'm your host, Dr. Alan, and I'm so glad to be with you today. Amanda Neely is an entrepreneur, profit first, and bank on yourself professional. And he is the co-host of Wealth Wisdom Financial Podcast with his wife, Amanda. They founded and managed Overflow Coffee Bar, L3C, from 2008 through 2018. Now they share their experiential knowledge through podcasting and through developing personalized financial strategies for individuals and couples and the profitability strategies for businesses. So, Brandon, tell us about a memorable experience from your formative years that shaped who you are today.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many. I've had a wild ride of different things that I've done, from the military going into the Marine Corps when I was a sick child as a kid. So they said I could never accomplish that kind of thing. And so, of course, what I did was join the hardest service ever, right? The Marine Corps, because they said I couldn't do it. And I wish I would have watched Full Metal Jacket previously, and I probably would have joined the Air Force or something. But that was really informative to realize what I could accomplish. You know, as much as people say what you can't do, I was able to accomplish so much more. And I think everybody should go to at least boot camp for a little bit just to learn what they can do. And especially as a team, right? From there, I went music industry, and that led me. Part of the Marine Corps experience was, well, you can't go into the music industry. I was like, well, why not? And I interned for some big celebrities because, you know, why couldn't you do it? Right. So I think that's both a great thing and a horrible thing when you're a business owner. Just being as you know, doing horse stuff, being a bull, just charging in. Sometimes it's good, sometimes not. That's why it's good to have a business partner that pulls you back a little bit.
That has a bit of a level head there.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about how to be our own CFO. And I guess anybody can be a CFO, but can everybody be successful? Tell us how.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially nowadays, people are running into being business owners. And I see this all the time where business owners are like, yeah, but I don't like numbers. I don't want to deal with that stuff. I'll go in and like me, I'll just do sales, right? And really pursue that. And the numbers will figure out. And I think that you need to have that muscle of a CFO, even before you're big enough to maybe hire a fractional CFO or a CFO. Like, people love to say, I have a CFO on my team and all that. But you want to make sure you know the numbers, at least on a high level, before you hire a CFO or even a bookkeeper or an accountant. Kind of know a little bit of what's going on. So that way you're not like scammed, right? You know, that happens. And because business owners don't know what's really going on, they end up in a harder place, right? Does that make sense?
That makes complete sense. So just to follow up on that, Brandon, what are the numbers from that high level that every business owner needs to be aware of?
Well, when I talk to some businesses, of course, the profit and loss, if they never look at a profit and loss statement, that's a red sign to me. If they don't look at the numbers of, you know, how much are you getting paid? That's why I love Profit First. It's kind of saying, is it a profitable business for you? Because there's a lot of businesses that I see that are making, if they're Amazon business sellers, right? They are making Jeff Bezos rich, or they're making JP Morgan and all these other places rich when they're in real estate, you know, doing fix and flips, and they have all these credit cards. And I think, like, a lot of times making sure that the business is serving you, right? And there is a separation between personal and business from a taxable thing and all that. But if you're a business owner, if your business is running in the red, that's going to affect your family life, right? And if you're spending it all and your family life is in that's in the black, right, on that side, but your business is in the red, there's something wrong, right? And so I kind of think about it as it's all one wallet, and having a good high level view of your numbers, even if you're not numbers focused, to get a good idea is really helpful.
So how do we go about running a profitable business?
Yeah, I think that sometimes you got to ask first, what kind of business do you want? Right. So some people, when it comes to real estate, they say, well, I want 100 doors. And I'm like, well, what's the goal of 100 doors? Well, because it'll give me that much income, right? Or whatever. But then their credit cards are eating up all of that. So they need to have 100 or 200 or whatever doors. And sometimes it's like, well, you really need is 10, really, or something along those lines. And so that's a question that you have to start with. What do you want? What kind of design, business, all of that do you want? And reverse engineer it.
Yeah, it was like I was talking to an acquaintance the other day, and they were saying they're an Uber driver, and they were going, oh, I make $25 an hour as an Uber driver. And I didn't say anything, but I'm going, oh, really? And I'm wondering if they are really looking at their books and if they're really considering the costs that go into being an Uber driver. But it's not just Uber drivers. I hear people who purchase their first property and they go, oh, I had such and so cash flow on this particular property. And I'm going, that's really, really nice. But do you really? Yeah. So talk to us about how we can get centered, how we can get clear, how we can get more profit, and not only be able to say, oh, I get such and so cash flow from my apartments, I get so much per hour from my Uber. How can we really know that at the end of the day, after all of those expenses are paid, after we consider our time, effort, and energy, how can we know?
Yeah, I think that's where, and you have my wife on the line on there before, Amanda Neely, on the show, and you had David Richter, right? And Profit First. And those are really amazing episodes. The way I kind of think about it is you need to actually look at your numbers, not just once every 6 months or whatever. You need to look at it more thoroughly. What we call, for my wife and I, she's the budgeting person, right? And does all that piece. I'm more of, if as we had the coffee shop, I was the front of the house and she's the back of the house, right? So I think about it as you build a team. You have your front of the house person and your back of the house. The front of the house is at least going to know what's going on a little bit on the back of the house. So you don't, overspend on other things. You're like, well, I need this or that for sales, whatever. And so you have to work together. And so I love to think about it in that way. And how we actually know, right, is we have to actually have money meetings. And we have that still method that's the framework that we've created, where you look and we do this money meeting where we set our sights, we track our in and out. That's what we do on a regular basis. Inspect our progress, look for 1% adjustments, and then live deliberately in that, right? So that's the still method, but it's happening on a regular basis. And within Profit First, they also have what they call the expense challenge. A lot of times we are buying things as business owners that we think are going to be amazing and they're going to be the next thing. And then we get on a recurring plan on this thing that we bought the product and it never worked out for us. But yeah, we're still paying for it. And hopefully it's going to work out. And you'd be surprised how many business owners have all of these little things that they're paying for that aren't bringing an ROI, right? And so doing an expense challenge regularly and recalibrating to what are my values? What's my sites that I want, right? And is this reaching to that goal, right? So that is something I think about a lot when it comes to buying a house, right? Buying multiple properties. Is this going towards the goal? And how can I make sure that JP Morgan isn't making more off the business than I am, right? I see this in one of my clients, they have all these credit cards to do fix and flips, right? And they're like, well, I'm cash flowing this. I'm like, well, no, your credit card interest is 25% on, and you have a bunch of them. We need to figure out lower that interest rate somehow to where you can have more cash flow, because the name of the game is cash flow, right? and how do we have that? And if you don't have positive cash flow, you're probably going to have a dying business.
Yes, and it may not be particularly pleasant when that happens either. So
Yeah.
just once again, what are the 5 steps of the still?
Yeah. So it is set your sights, track your in and out, inspect your progress, look for 1% adjustments, and live deliberately. And if you go to Still Method, you can download a little PDF for it. And with the Still, it was our response to how money and taxes and everything is confusing and chaos. There's a guy, he's an author his name is Donald Miller, and he wrote the book called Story Brand. And he said, if you confuse, you lose, right? And I hear this a lot. And I think our tax code is confusing. How we put into our money in the 401k is confusing. And so a lot of people are totally confused, and it's chaos, right? And chaos is another acronym. It's confusing, haphazard, anxious, overwhelming, and stressful, right? Does that sound like what a lot of people are dealing with right now? Confusing, haphazard, anxious, overwhelming, and stressful. Part of it is because it's by design created for that to happen, and we need to have some clarity.
Absolutely. And yes, I think you're absolutely correct. It is created by design. There's a lot of people out there who benefit from us being in the dark.
Right.
And we have to be on the watch for those kind of things. Well, how do we know when it is time to make that pivot in our business? Either small pivots or major pivots.
Yeah, I think it goes back again to the Still Method, right? And if you know your sites, your goals, you're going to be able to know when to make some of those pivots, but you have to actually have a pulse on that. And looking at, again, the 80-20 rule, if you ever heard of that, the 20% of what you do actually matters, 80% doesn't, those kind of things. That's part of doing that kind of regular meeting with your business partners, even with yourself, to say, okay, what's working, what's not. And business owners, oh my gosh, we love shiny objects, and we'll pick up this and we'll forget this and we'll do this. And what we have to really figure out is how to be disciplined, because there's no overnight success. Usually it's those small actions over time. So that 1% adjustments, how can I make that 1% adjustment? Those regular things, there's no quick fix, right? In any business, unless you have like some rich uncle that's going to gift you money, but then, they had to do something to get there.
Well, what does it look like to bank on yourself?
Yeah, that was something that before we even got into Profit First, our biggest risk was our business. And we needed to have somewhere that we're putting our money towards retirement, towards emergencies that we had access to, but is still growing, still doing something for us. And it was, of all things, a whole life insurance, which people will like hear that and say, I'm not doing that. But we didn't know. We didn't know that anything about Dave Ramsey or any of this kind of anger towards life insurance and the market. We just knew our biggest risk was our business, and we didn't need to be putting more at risk as well. And so we needed some place for stability. So the Bank on Yourself method was a properly designed whole life insurance policy that we can put money into and access on our terms, right? There's the loan cost to get it, but it's smaller than a credit card, right? At least high interest credit cards. And so we were able to access that money, pay off some high interest student debt, get through a flood in our business, right? And literally a flood happened, and we were able to overcome that. And ultimately we paid back the loan, and we bought our house here in Cincinnati with a down payment of 20% from our policy, right? So then we have no PMI, and we then pay back the loan, and then we're going to use that money again. So we've already paid back the loan. We're going to use that money again for a building for our business, right? So we're going to do that again. And all the while, my money is still growing as if I never touched it.
Well, excellent. Well, Brandon, how do we get in touch with you to take advantage of your wisdom and expertise?
Yeah, you can always go to the Wealth Wisdom Financial channel on YouTube. Of course, we have a lot of stuff there to learn. But really go download the Still Method. If you go to stillmethod.com, you can get that little download, and it's asking some of those questions because, again, the questions are what's going to dictate what you want, right? So there's no one size fits all in real estate, in any of this. And you have to wrestle with those questions. So go download Still Method. And if you want to have a conversation with us, our business name is Grandma's Wealth Wisdom. So go to grandmaswealthwisdom.com and you can schedule a meeting right there, and it's free of charge.
Well, excellent. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for being with us. Enjoyable conversation. And thank you for enlightening us on how we can be our own CFO.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to Real Estate Investing Abundance, brought to you by Steve Talker Capital, a company working for passionate professionals like you to develop financial independence built on solid, passive real estate investments. As part of our efforts to make the world a better place, Steve Talker Capital contributes to activities and organizations committed to better understand the equine. These endeavors attempt to enhance the human treatment of horses worldwide. Steve Talker Capital, working for a world where all creatures, great and small, flourish abundantly. For resources to develop your financial independence, connect with us at stevetalker.com.